It was an otherwise unassuming day in August 2007 when the then number 4 tennis player in the world, Nikolai Davidenko, faced off against 87th ranked Martin Vasasho at an unassuming tournament in Poland, with the heavy favorite Davidenko cruising, having won the first set 6-2 and leading in the second set. This match, as it would later turn out, was anything but unassuming. You see, unbeknownst to most people watching that match in person or on TV, something very peculiar was happening at the very same time on the internet. Betfair.com in particular, a popular online gambling website. The strange thing was, even before the two men had stepped foot on court that day, hundreds of thousands of pounds were placed on the underdog, Vasasho, to win, despite the overwhelming odds he wouldn't. Even stranger, as Davidenko won the first set and was very close to victory in the second, the amount of money bet on Vasasho soared even higher, with nearly £7 million placed on the far and away underdog to win, an amount reportedly 10 times greater than that bet on similar matches. Then, as if it were predetermined, Davidenko's game started to break down. He requested medical timeouts, complaining about ankle and toe pain, and called it quits early in the third set. The overwhelming suspicion of foul play caused Betfair's anti-corruption team to immediately void all bets placed on the match, and professional tennis was soon thrust into mainstream news outlets for all the wrong reasons. Although Davidenko and his opponent were later cleared of all wrongdoing by the ATP, a decision suspicious in and of itself for reasons we'll get into later, this match was a glimpse for many into the underworld of the professional tennis gambling circuit, a catalyst which spawned investigations that revealed systematic and widespread corruption throughout the sport, and to this day leaves the integrity of one of the most popular sports in the world in jeopardy. This is a quick look into the illegal side of tennis, match fixing. By definition, match fixing is when the outcome of a match in organized sports has been manipulated, usually to either ensure a certain player or team advances, or for the most obvious reason, gambling. As you can imagine, this issue is not exclusive to tennis and has been historically prevalent, if not rampant, in virtually every sport at every professional level since the term sports was ever coined. What made the Davidenko match so notable is that, if guilty, a number 4 ranked player in the world tanking a match for financial gain would mean that match fixing had infiltrated the highest level of the sport. And if one of the best players in the world was participating, you could guarantee countless other lower ranked players were in on it too. So before we dive into investigations of players who have been accused or outright banned thus far, let's first discuss why tennis in particular can be considered the perfect breeding ground for corruption. As a primarily individual sport, only one player needs to be corrupted for the whole scheme to be pulled off. Now sure, a top-level player earning millions of dollars per year might need some Jordan Belfort levels of convincing to jeopardize their entire career for a one-time payoff, but what about those grinding it out in the minor leagues, who barely make enough money to pay their own travel costs, let alone living expenses, and may not be able to resist the temptation of thousands of dollars to fix one measly match? That's exactly the trap this man fell into, Karim Hossam, who in 2017 was sucked into one of the biggest verified match-fixing ring investigations the world has seen to date. Whew, that's a mouthful. 4 years earlier, a 20-year-old Hossam, who had recently been one of the best junior tennis players in the world, was struggling to make a living playing tournaments at the lowest level of professional tennis, ITF Futures events. When preparing for a tournament one day, a fellow player he didn't know well approached him and offered $1,000 to throw his opening match. Although he had declined the same offer months earlier when asked to throw a match against a top player at a more premier tournament, the prize money and ranking points gained at low-level futures tournaments were so insignificant in comparison that he agreed, lost the match, and was paid almost the equivalent to what he would have made if he had won the entire tournament. Though the prize money amounts awarded at these tournaments are low, gambling amounts placed on these matches are anything but, with the amounts placed on a single match magnitudes greater than Hossam was ever paid. With the allure of easy money, Hossam soon expanded the operation and became a fixer, a middleman of sorts who arranges fixes between players and gambling rings. By the time Hossam was caught by authorities over 4 years later, he had already arranged dozens upon dozens of fixes, with computer evidence implicating over 20 other professional players in his schemes, including his own brother, exemplifying how vulnerable players were at the lowest levels to have risked their entire careers over bigger payouts. Now, one question you might be asking is, if these match fixers are making significant money purposely losing matches, how are their poor results even qualifying them into future tournaments? Aren't they jeopardizing their precious ranking? Well, in professional men's tennis, players are awarded a certain amount of ranking points based on how far they get in a tournament. A player can enter as many tournaments as they want all year, assuming they qualify, but only their best result in a maximum 18 tournaments count toward their ranking. This rule is in place so that lesser players don't get a higher ranking just by playing 52 tournaments a year. So if you were playing 19 tournaments, and your worst result out of all of them was a third round defeat, the points earned in that tournament would vanish when calculating year-end rankings. So, that said, aside from the tournament prize money, what's stopping any player from playing 30 tournaments a year, doing his best in 18 of them, and match fixing the rest of them as a side business? Aside from the possibility of getting caught, nothing. The decks are almost stacked in favor of those illegal gambling rings from the get-go. Now, in all fairness, the ATP did establish the Tennis Integrity Unit, or TIU, shortly after the Davidenko scandal, an organization solely responsible for investigating match fixing in tennis. An important rule created was that any player approached and asked to fix a match must report the incident immediately, regardless if they decline the offer, and failure to do so is an offense that could lead to a lengthy ban from tennis. With that in mind, in 2015, top 150 Argentinian player Marco Trungelliti came forward as a whistleblower, claiming he was invited to a potential sponsorship meeting which ended up being a ruse for a proposed match-fixing scheme. Due to his cooperation, testimony given helped convict 3 other Argentine players accused of match-fixing. What should have been a good deed backfired in short time, however, as the TIU failed to obscure his identity in the video testimony at other players' hearings, quickly labeling him a snitch among other players and coaches who, while friendly beforehand, now refused to shake his hand or even look his way, epitomizing the unspoken tolerance match-fixing had with the professional tennis community at large. When rumors swirled that Marco Trungelliti himself was caught match-fixing and ratted on his compatriots to save himself, he turned to the TIU to help set the facts straight and clear his name. But puzzlingly, all Marco heard in return was radio silence. So what can we make of all of this? And how can we prevent match fixing from further infiltrating professional tennis? In all fairness, the ATP and TIU have greatly stepped up to suspend or outright permanently ban many players found to be match fixing in a number of separate investigations. And now that the issue has repeatedly been reported in mainstream media, we can hope players feel the pressure to do the right thing and decline participation. As for the future, higher payouts at low-level tournaments, encouraging player education, and third-party auditing of the TIU's practices might allow greater transparency and tougher punishments going forward. And oh yeah, remember that comment I made about the Davidenko-Vasascio match? A 2016 BuzzFeed BBC joint investigation found that phone records buried from the original investigation showed multiple text message conversations between Vasascio and known Italian Betfair account holders, having taken place just hours before the match. In his contacts was the name Davidenko, even though Davidenko himself claimed to have not known Vasascio personally. As for Davidenko, well, he refused to hand his own phone over to investigators, and by the time it was turned over, all relevant information was either deleted or lost in time. Before we sign off, just know that the same 2016 investigation revealed that winners of singles and doubles titles at Grand Slam tournaments have been secretly implicated in losing games, sets, and matches under suspicious circumstances, but their identities are withheld from the general public, showing that the issue may truly be boiling over as you watch this video. So next time you see your favorite player upset in front of thousands, just know there's a chance not all is what it seems.